Thank you all for coming to the Congressional Law Enforcement Awards. I'm glad we finally got a chance to do this. It's been real important to us. So before we get started, if I could get everybody to stand up just one more time for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. I would now like to invite up to the podium a man that truly doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to give it to him anyway. Sheriff Rick Wells of Manatee County to introduce the congressman.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I just want to thank Dave, Sally, the entire staff for finally making this possible. It's been a rough few months for everyone, and I think this is a great venue. It allows me to wear my hat in an environment that I'm used to, so you really can't go wrong with this. So I just want to say a few things here. So U.S. Representative Vern Buchanan is the co-chair of the bipartisan 29-member Florida Congressional Delegation and currently serves on the powerful House and Ways and Means Committee, which has the jurisdiction over tax policy, international trade, health care, welfare, Social Security, and Medicare. Congressman Buchanan is the lead Republican, also on the Trade Subcommittee. Congressman Buchanan ended the 116th Congress with 6 of his legislative initiatives enacted into law, bringing to total 23 total number of legislative initiatives he has passed into law since taking office in 2007. These accomplishments include reforms to military training procedures, measures to stop animal cruelty, confronting the drug epidemic, helping Americans save for retirement, and making animal abuse a federal offense. Earlier this year, Congressman Buchanan reintroduced the Thin Blue Line Act, which toughens penalties against anyone who murders police and other first responders. This bill passed in the House in 2017, but wasn't taken up by the Senate. I know you find that hard to believe. It would make the murder or attempted murder of a first responder an aggravating factor in the death penalty determinations. Here's what I want you to remember. We have a congressman who supports law enforcement, but more importantly, he supports law enforcement verbally. He's not afraid of what others think about his commitment and his endorsement and his support of law enforcement. He is a great friend. He is someone that backs us no matter what. This event that we are attending here tonight, don't believe for a second that this goes on all over the country. This is something that was started, and the congressman will tell you, by our late great friend Gary Tibbetts, who made this possible. And we miss him and we love him, and the congressman has continued this and continues to support all of us. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you law enforcement's Congressman, U.S. Representative Vern Buchanan.
Well, let me just say what a great sheriff that we have, and he deserves a big round of applause for his leadership. You know, I always tell it the way I see it. When I first ran for Congress, I never ran for anything, but I can tell you this for absolutely certainty. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for his father, Charlie Wells. He supported me early in Manatee County, and that was a difference maker. When you win a race by 369 votes, his friendship along the years and just his leadership and respect. And I didn't win it in Sarasota County. I came in, you know, it was a tougher race there, but Manatee County delivered in a big way. It was a lot because of his father's reputation and leadership. I want to thank Sheriff Wells for the introduction and welcome you to the 11th Annual 16th District Congressional Awards. I established the Congressional Law Enforcement Awards to give special recognition to law enforcement officers, departments, and units for exceptional achievement. Law enforcement is a demanding profession that requires sacrifice courage, and a dedication to serve others. Every day, brave men and women put themselves in harm's way to enforce the laws of our society and protect our public streets. They deserve our gratitude and respect. There shouldn't be anything about defunding the police. I got to tell you, one of the big chairmen, he's a Democrat, happens to be, but before he got into Congress, he was a mayor of a good-sized town. And the election had just got over. I was back up in Washington, and I said hi to him, and I said, how'd it go? And he looked at me, and I said, what'd you think, how the elections went? He said, the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life is defund the police. But that's where they're at on the other side. I don't want to make it political, but they're wrong, and I can tell you that in a big way. We have about 1 million sheriffs and police sworn in the country, and I try to do everything I can to support their effort. I believe these awards are a fitting tribute to our officers and a reminder of the important role they play in our communities. I want to thank Dave for coordinating this year's event. I appreciate the law enforcement agencies that make up the nomination committee, it's not me, for this year's award. And I want to thank the judges, Lieutenant Paula Newman, Manatee County Sheriff's Office, Lieutenant John Jensen, Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, Master Detective John McDarby from Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Thomasburg, Supervisor, Special Agent, FBI, Sarasota Office. And this year we have a newly named award I'm very, very excited about. The Career Service Award is now the Gary Tibbetts Service Award in honor of his he was a former field representative in our area. Many of you knew Gary. He was a retired police sergeant who served more than 23 years, Manchester Police Department in New Hampshire. And I just tell you, Gary was with us for 10 years. He worked with me, and he loved Manatee County. He really grew in the position, and he obviously did everything he could heading up the awards for you. As I said, he served for 10 years. Gary unfortunately died last year of COVID-19. He was a true professional and a true public servant in every sense of the word. He took great pleasure in coordinating these awards. We want to honor his widow tonight, Valerie Tibbetts, who's here with us tonight. Let's give her a round of applause and some special recognition. Also, Gary's brother, Don, let's give him a round of applause. Thanks for coming. We have many awards to give out tonight, so let's get started with that. Sally?
Thank you. I'm Sally Shealy, Congressman Buchanan's District Director, and I'm going to announce the winners of this award. I do ask after the ceremony if all of the winners could stay around and come back up front, and we'll probably place you in the bleachers to the side here so that we can get a group photo with everyone. Sergeant Aaron Bowling and Detectives Tyler Ackerman and John Jones Jr. of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In September of 2020, patrol units pursued a suspected drunk driver who made 2 attempts to hit a deputy. The pursuit ended at the Sunshine Skyway Bridge. The driver exited his vehicle and sat on the bridge wall. Detective Jones initiated a conversation with the driver, who said he wanted to die. While the driver was trying to call his mother to say goodbye, Detective Jones was able to distract him long enough for Detective Ackerman to grab him and pull him off the wall and onto the roadway. After a brief struggle, the driver was taken into custody. Sergeant Aaron Bowling directed the patrol deputies throughout the entire incident. And if you could please come forward to receive your awards. Sergeant Bowling and Detectives Ackerman and Jones are presented with the Above and Beyond the Call of Duty Award.
Let's give him a round of applause.
And if you want to make your way forward as I first call your names, that'll help keep the program going. Director Matoya Wimbley of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In March of 2020, an inmate crew leader did not call in or report to work as scheduled. Director Wimbley tried unsuccessfully to contact the employee and decided to personally check on her at home. The employee didn't answer the door. Director Wimbley checked around the house and saw through the bedroom window that the employee was in distress and unable to respond. Director Wimbley called 911. Deputies arrived and were able to enter the home and render assistance. Director Wimbley then stayed with the employee until she was out of danger and able to make contact with her family. Had Director Wimbley not taken the time to check on her employee, the outcome would have been tragic. Director Wimbley is presented with the Associate Service Award. Detective Eddie Howell of the Sarasota Police Department. Detective Howell was hired by the Sarasota Police Department in 1997. In his nearly 25-year career, he has maintained an impeccable reputation as hardworking, dedicated, and professional. For the past 4 years, Detective Howell has been attached to the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration as a task force officer investigating large-scale narcotics cases that typically have ties to some of the most notorious drug cartels in the world. This is a highly sought-after position that is given to senior detectives with impeccable professional reputations. In February of 2021, Detective Howell and his team began investigating a large-scale methamphetamine, cocaine, and heroin trafficking group with direct ties to Sarasota. After months of surveillance and cultivating informants, the task force was able to make several arrests. Subsequent search warrants for locations in Sarasota, Hillsborough, and Manatee counties resulted in the confiscation of 31 kilograms of crystal methamphetamines, 550 grams of cocaine, 68 grams of marijuana, 1.75 kilograms of heroin, 45 grams of MDMA, 15 firearms, and just under $300,000. Although the investigation is ongoing, these initial arrests and confiscations have disrupted the flow of massive amounts of illegal drugs into our community. Detective Howell is presented with the Gary Tibbetts Career Service Award. Major Daniel Kaufman of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Major Kaufman has served since 1990 with the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. He has worked in every bureau, including enforcement, administrative investigations, and corrections. He has dedicated many years as a SWAT team member. Major Kaufman has been a mentor to many individuals and has helped shape the many careers within the agency. He always displays great leadership, professionalism, and a positive attitude. His commitment to the agency, the community, fosters a positive atmosphere to work and live in. Major Kaufman is presented with the Gary Tibbetts Career Service Award. Manager Valerie Knight of the Bradenton Police Department. In 1994, Manager Knight was sworn in as the Bradenton Police Department's first African-American female officer. Major Knight began her career in the Patrol Division. She was transferred in 1997 to the Detective Unit, where she conducted long-term investigations, including well over 1,000 cases involving children, ranging from abuse, neglect, sexual abuse, and even deaths. In 2007, Manager Knight was promoted to sergeant. She took on the added roles of being an advisor to the Explorer program, serving as the department liaison for the region regarding crimes involving children, and managing the crime scene investigation unit. She was promoted to lieutenant in 2015 and supervised the Records Division, Crime Scene Investigation Unit, Communications, Property and Evidence, Parking, Building and Fleet Maintenance, and Crime Analyst Unit. In 2017, she was appointed Accreditation Manager, overseeing the Bradenton Police Department's accreditation. In 2020, Manager Knight was promoted to the rank of Captain of Administrative Services, making her responsible for the department's policies and procedures, quality assurance, and accreditation. Manager Knight's professional accomplishments are extensive, and her impact on the department cleared the way for others to follow in her footsteps. Manager Knight is presented with the Gary Tibbetts Career Service Award. Officer Joseph Pinicello of the Sarasota Manatee Airport Authority Police Department. Officer Pinicello is a career law enforcement officer who has served honorably and faithfully for 32 years. He served the Sarasota Police Department for 25 years, including 15 years as a field training officer. Upon his retirement, he joined the Airport Police Department as field training officer. Officer Panicello's professionalism and dedication to the agencies he has served and the law enforcement community as a whole has taken patience, discipline, and sacrifice. Officer Panicello is presented with the Gary Tibbetts Career Service Award. Corporal Christopher Slowick of the Florida Highway Patrol. Corporal Slowick has worked his entire career in Troop F in Southwest Florida. From 2007 to 2017, he patrolled local communities as a trooper. From 2012 to 2017, he also served as a field training officer, helping to train and mentor new troopers. In 2017, he was promoted to the rank of corporal and is presently a traffic homicide investigator. During 2020, Corporal Slowick investigated 27 fatal accidents, several of which resulted in criminal charges. Through the course of his investigations, he located and impounded hit-and-run vehicles, built cases using video surveillance, paint samples, and other forensics, and arrested at-fault drivers for a variety of crimes, including leaving the scene with death, vehicular homicide, and DUI manslaughter. Corporal Slowick was on call for 28 consecutive days in 2020, while several of his peers were activated for a deployment. He is an elite law enforcement officer who promotes and supports Florida Highway Patrol's mission of making our roadways safer. Corporal Slowick is presented with the Dedication and Professionalism Award. Sergeant Dino Merges and Detective Derek Pollock and Raymond Richer of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office and Assistant State Attorneys Dan Buff and Courtney Holland of the 12th Judicial Circuit. Near the end of 2019, 2 adult brothers died of fentanyl overdoses within 3 days of one another, leaving a distraught mother grieving and searching for answers. Within weeks, then Detective Merges and Detectives Richer and Pollock were able to identify the person responsible for the sale of the fentanyl to the brothers. By using a combination of surveillance, undercover work, hand-to-hand drug buys, and informants, detectives arranged a narcotics purchase directly from the dealer and established a rapport that allowed them to buy from his supplier. With a clear link from the supplier and the seller, the 2 overdose victims, the detectives charged the seller with 2 counts of first-degree murder. In 2021, Assistant State Attorneys Buff and Holland then secured a grand jury indictment against the seller for 2 counts of first-degree murder. Although nothing can fill the void for the victim's mother, hopefully knowing the suspect has been brought to justice will provide a small amount of comfort. Sergeant Merges, Detectives Pollock and Richer, and Attorneys Buff and Holland are presented with the Dedication and Professionalism Award.
I did want to mention one thing I forgot to say, that all these awards are a lot different than maybe any other awards. I'm sure some of you got awards over the years. It's part of the Congressional record. It'll be in the record forever for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren, and on and on. So it's part of the archives moving forward. We're filing all of these as part of Congress. So just so you know.
Lieutenant James Toce, Sergeants Don Bennett and Ray White, Deputies John Albee, Wida Law, Phil Lucia, Grace Liu, Dean Pappas, Teodoro Perez, Luis Reyes, Neftali Santos, Daniel Schneck, Rod Stewart, Deb Stuckey, Mark Truskowski, and John Wenzel, and civilian Lou Wolf of the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. These personnel have exceeded their duty requirements and demonstrated care, high moral character, natural leadership abilities, and teamwork. In March of 2020, Florida's Chief Justice ordered only essential proceedings be held in Florida's state courts in response to COVID-19. Nobody held in the Sarasota County Correctional Facility was allowed inside the courthouse. The court service deputies created a virtual courtroom program that closely mirrored in-person hearings and collaborated with the 12th Judicial Circuit Court, State Attorney's Office, and Public Defender to allow the criminal justice system to work during the crisis. Within a week, 3 virtual courtrooms were created inside the jail to provide high-quality video and audio to any courtroom within the state of Florida for use by any judge, including a quarantine courtroom that allowed inmates separated for potential COVID-19 to also be heard and potentially released. Hearings were scheduled, court service deputies were trained, and the virtual courtroom program became a huge success. However, challenges arose and were met. Fingerprinting, which was typically done within the courtroom, was done with a digital fingerprint scanner. Court service deputies completed supervised pretrial release documents previously completed by personnel prohibited from working inside the correctional facility during the pandemic. This allowed inmates to be released from custody. The deputies identified and met additional needs, creating 3 kiosks to host sentencing hearings, resentencing hearings, divorce hearings, and child custody hearings and mediations. Without them, the jail population would have become overpopulated. Court dockets would have skyrocketed, and inmates would have had no means for their cases to be heard. The work of these court deputies to develop entirely new procedures to offset the effects of COVID-19 on our local criminal justice system has been extraordinary. The virtual courtroom program also became popular in Manatee, Hillsborough, DeSoto, Charlotte, and Pinellas counties. Lieutenant Toast, Sergeants Bennett and White, Deputies Albee Law, Lucia, Liu, Pappas, Perez, Reyes, Santos, Schneck, Stewart, Stuckey, Trukowski, and Wenzel, and Civilian Wolf are presented with the Dedication and Professionalism Award. I'm sorry? If you would like a group shot, we can do that.
Let's give another round of applause.
Lieutenant Adam Caskey, Sergeant Sam Lutz, Deputies Mark Eve and Ray Vlick, Detectives Hayden Gaylor and Brendan Keats, Radio Tech Stephen Deuce, Chief Pilot Brent Wineka, pilots David Buford, Chris Laster, and Stephen Schull, and mechanics Arthur Garcia and Douglas Wenz of the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. In 2020, the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office Aviation Unit saw a 32% increase in calls for service and a 19% increase in the number of locations, suspects, or persons found. The unit was on the scene to assist ground units with the many different calls, including locating lost hikers, dementia patients, and fleeing suspects, and firefighting. Furthermore, they served as the overwatch for support during the 2 events that ultimately turned into police-involved shootings. Last July, the aviation unit assisted the Northport Police Department with a suicidal man firing shots. The aviation crew directed the ground units to keep them updated with the subject's movements. The subject eventually directed his weapon towards the officers, who had to use deadly force in return, which was captured on the unit's video system. The next month, the unit was called out to assist with a missing suicidal subject in Sarasota. The subject was spotted by the aviation unit and deputies on the ground. The suspect charged deputies with a knife, forcing them to use deadly force, which was also captured on the aviation unit's video system. The availability and dependability of their aircraft is crucial for the success of the unit. The aviation mechanics are responsible for maintaining the helicopters to ensure that the unit is always available to assist. The pilots, tactical flight officers, and mechanics all have very important jobs within the unit. Their dedication to the unit and to the safety of the ground units is evident, as is their work ethic. Deputy Vleck, Pilot Buford, Detective Keats, Mechanic Wentz are unable to be here. Lieutenant Caskey, Sergeant Lutz, Deputy Eve, Detective Galler, Radio Tech Deuce, Chief Pilot Wineka, Pilots Lassiter and Schull, and Mechanics Gracia are presented with the Dedication and Professionalism Award.
Appreciate you.
Deputy Keith English of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In January of 2020, Deputy English responded to an abandoned 911 call. Callbacks to the original number were unanswered. The GPS coordinates brought him to the Tree Lakes Mobile Home Park. Deputy English patrolled the area and found an unresponsive 82-year-old man not breathing with no pulse. Deputy English notified dispatch of the need for emergency medical services. He administered CPR to the man until EMS arrived, acquired a pulse, and transported the man in critical condition. If not for Deputy English's diligent search of the area and administration of CPR, the man's chances of survival would have been significantly diminished. Deputy English is presented with a Preservation of Life Award. Sergeant Keith Nordsey and Deputy Tyler Lewis of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In June of 2020, a woman ran up to Sergeant Nordsey, Deputy Lewis, at the Fort Hammer boat ramp screaming, "Help, call 911, my dad is having a heart attack." They responded to a nearby vehicle and found a man in the driver's seat suffering from a cardiac episode. They removed him from the vehicle and initiated life-saving efforts. An AED was applied and shock administered. CPR was then administered, with Sergeant Nordsey providing breaths and Deputy Lewis providing compressions. As EMS arrived on the scene, the male regained a pulse and was breathing. Sergeant Nordsey is unable to be here. Deputy Tyler was presented with the Preservation of Life Award. Deputies Donald Mays, Deborah Perry, and Patty Smith of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In July of 2020, Deputy Mays received a text from an acquaintance asking for help. The text included a photo of the acquaintance lying in a pool of blood. Deputy Mays immediately notified Deputy Smith, who responded along with Deputy Perry. Deputy Smith arrived first and saw blood outside the front door. She attempted to gain entry when a maintenance person with a key arrived and opened the door. Deputy Smith then kicked in an interior door to gain access to the acquaintance, who was lying on the floor, unresponsive, in a pool of blood. The victim had sustained self-inflicted lacerations, causing an arterial bleed from the wrists. Deputies Perry and Mays arrived on the scene, and all three began life-saving efforts. They wrapped the lacerated wrists with towels and applied pressure to stop the bleeding. The victim began having seizures. They turned her on her side until EMS arrived. The victim survived. Deputies Mays, Perry, and Smith are presented with the Preservation of Life Award. Deputy Jacob Merrill and Deputy Todd Stiletto of the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. In March of 2020, Deputies Merrill and Stiletto, were patrolling the beach on a UTV when they were waved down by a citizen who alerted them to a boat that appeared to be taking on water. The boat was about 250 yards off Bean Point, which has some of the worst riptides in Manatee County. Dispatch was notified and the Marine unit was requested. 5 people abandoned the vessel as it began to capsize. A young adult and 2 children started to make their way to shore when they hit a drop in the ocean floor, lost footing, and screamed for help. Deputy Merrill discarded his duty belt, vest, and shoes and entered the water as Deputy Stiletto went for a flotation ring. He threw the ring to Deputy Merrill as he swam approximately 75 yards to the now struggling children. Once Deputy Merrill secured the 3 subjects, Deputy Stiletto pulled the rope to get everyone on shore. A civilian boater responded to the area, and Deputy Merrill was able to board the vessel and retrieve the remaining 2 from the water and bring them to shore. All 5 people were cleared by emergency medical services. Deputy Merrill is unable to be here. Deputy Stiletto apparently unable to be here also. Okay. Officers Paul Gagnon, Jared Lawhead, David Roberts, and Cody Staniland of the Sarasota Police Department. In December of 2020, officers Gagnon, Lawhead, Roberts, and Staniland responded to a call about a sinking vehicle at the 10th Street boat ramp. Upon their arrival, they found two people standing in the water beside an overturned vehicle, yelling for help. The officers immediately jumped into the cold water and determined that the driver was still inside the overturned vehicle and unable to release the seatbelt. The officers shattered the windows and entered the vehicle from the passenger side window, which was completely submerged. While underwater and despite minimal illumination, they cut the seatbelt with a knife, removed the unconscious driver from the vehicle, and brought the subject to shore where fire rescue was standing by to begin resuscitation procedures. Their quick and selfless actions represent not only the highest ideals of the Sarasota Police Department, but those of the law enforcement profession. Officers Gagnon, Lawhead are unable to be here. Officers Robert and Stanilin are presented with the Preservation of Life Award. Sergeant Daniel Weinsberg, Officers Sean Carter and Matthew Hughes, and Administration Specialist Tina Shumway of the Sarasota Police Department Training Unit. During 2020, the training unit distinguished themselves by performing at a high level during the pandemic. They adjusted as mandated by CDC requirements to fulfill their responsibilities and provide time-sensitive training to the 179 sworn personnel at the Sarasota Police Department. The training unit prepared 11 recruit officers for the rigors of field training evaluation program. This was accomplished by holding several agency-specific training sessions, which are 1 month in duration. The topics covered during training included policies and procedures, firearms, defensive tactics, report writing, and handling high-stress situations. The unit was also involved in coordinating the purchase of new equipment and training all sworn personnel on the use of the equipment. A law enforcement agency's competency and professionalism are influenced by those responsible for training. The training unit's team efforts are instrumental in the success shared in every division of the police department. Sergeant Weinsberg, Officer Carter and Hughes, and Administrative Specialist Shumway are presented with the Unit Citation Award. That concludes the 2021 Congressional Law Enforcement Awards. Thank you.